5 on probability distributions, section 5.4, parameters for binomial distributions. So this is a continuation of the previous section that we were working on. There's only a few slides here though. So in this section, we're going to consider important characteristics of a binomial distribution, including center, variation, and distribution. That is, given a particular binomial distribution, we're going to learn equations to be able to find the mean, the variance, and the standard deviation. So just like we learned some other ways to calculate a mean and a variance and a standard deviation for probability distributions, binomials actually have their own set of formulas. So luckily, they're very simple, which is nice, and they're a lot more simple than what you guys have previously had to calculate to be able to solve for these values. So in a binomial distribution, your mean is found by multiplying your n, which is your number of trials, times p, which is your probability of success. Your variance is found by multiplying n, which is the number of trials, times p, which is your probability of success, multiplied by q, which is your probability of failure. And your standard deviation is found by taking the square root of how you calculate your variance. So they're fairly easy to and straightforward to calculate. And in the problems, you're usually given n and p. So the only thing that you'd need to solve for to be able to plug into these equations would be q. And as we've said before, that can be found by doing 1 minus p. 1 minus your probability of success gives you your probability of failure, which is your lowercase q. So you can also use range rule of thumb here for binomials. So, and it's calculated the same way, and it's used the same way as we've seen before. So it allows you to calculate a maximum usual value and a minimum usual value by taking your mean plus 2 standard deviation to calculate your maximum, and the mean minus 2 standard deviation to calculate your minimum usual value. So let's look at an example of this. McDonald's has a 95% recognition rate. A special focus group consists of 12 randomly selected adults. So for such a group, we want to find the mean and the standard deviation. So as a refresher, our mean is found by doing the number of trials times our probability of success. Well, we're given in the problem that there's going to be 12 adults, so that's our n. And 0.95 is our 95%, which is our probability of success, divided by 100 to turn it into a decimal of 0.95. And when you do out that math, you get that your mean is equal to 11.4. And to find your standard deviation, we're going to do the square root of n times p times q. Well, we already know our n and our p because we use them here. And we already said that to find our q, we're going to do 1 minus our p, which is 0.95, to get 0.05. And when we multiply those together and take the square root, we get 0.754983, and we're going to round that to 0.8. So now that we have our mean and our standard deviation, we can go ahead and calculate, using range rule of thumb, our maximum number of usual people who would recognize McDonald's based on this problem, and the minimum number. So we're going to take, again, to calculate our max, our mean plus 2 standard deviation, so 11.4 plus 2 times 0.8, which was our standard deviation, which is going to give us 13 people, and our mean minus 2 standard deviation, which gives us 9.8 people. So this is our maximum number of people and our minimum number of people. So based on this, if a particular group of 12 people had all recognized McDonald's, that would not be unusual because it's between our max value of 13 and our minimum value of 9.8. And that's actually the end of section 5.4, so short and sweet here. But again, just another way to calculate a mean, a variance, and a standard deviation, which allows us to know some characteristics of our probabilities. Okay, up next, section 5.5.